All right, Ms. Kirk will have you come up and step into the witness box up here. And when you get in, if you can just stand close to the microphone in there, but don't have a seat just yet, my clerk will give you an oath.
Okay. I'll have you please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then you may be seated and you may remove your mask.
Okay, thanks.
And then, because we're being recorded, I'm going to ask you to please state and spell your first and last name.
Okay.
And if you could scoot up either a little closer to the mic or bring it closer to you, that would be great.
It bends down, yeah.
Now,
Yes, go ahead, please.
my whole name is Kimberly Tuttle Kirk.
And how do you spell it?
The last name?
All of it.
Okay, Kimberly, Kimberly. Tuttle is Tuttle Kirk.
All right, thank you. There's water there if you would like some. It looks like you brought your own though, so whenever defense is ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Tuttle Kirk, are you the co-owner of a business called Threat Dynamics?
I am.
What's the nature of that business?
We're a firearms training facility as well as a live fire range and retail shop.
Okay, where is it located?
Sherwood, Oregon.
Right, and you've just got the one branch in Sherwood?
Correct.
Okay. How long have you owned that?
Since 2010?
Okay, so you've owned it in 2018?
Yes.
All right. Can you describe for us your standard practice for having customers come in? Do you have a form that you fill out, and if so, what's the purpose of that form?
Well, it depends on what exactly they're doing within the facility. If they're coming in for retail or to use our simulators or classes, they register online to do some of that. They can call us and do that. If they come in for a class, then they're issued a certificate depending on what class they take. If they're coming in to use the live fire range, we have them fill, if it's their first time in, we have them fill out a liability waiver. On that liability waiver, there's questions, I'll just say like I say it to everybody. There's questions that are going to be yes or no questions they're going to check. They have to give us their current address on the bottom of the form. They have to sign it. And on the back, we do take a copy of their driver's license.
Okay, so let me stop you there and just run through this. So you've got some simulators and people can register online to reserve those.
Right.
And does that registration process involve leaving a name or some sort of identifying
Correct.
information?
Yes.
Okay. And then the classes, do people also register online for those, or do they sign up in a variety of ways?
A variety of ways.
And do you keep logs or records of who takes those classes?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you go about identifying who those people are? Do you require a driver's license, or what's that process look like?
So if they're in for a class other than a concealed handgun class, then they do not have to give us ID. They do have to register for the class. And then they have to sign in on a sign-in sheet when they come in for the class.
Okay, and are there multiple classes? Is it a course or is it a single class?
There's several different types of classes, anywhere from beginners to more advanced classes.
Okay, so if it was a series of classes, they'd have to sign in each and every time?
Correct.
Okay.
Every time they come in, they have to sign.
Okay, and then it sounds like the live fire range, that is something somebody could do without necessarily scheduling in advance, is that correct?
Correct. It is first come, first serve.
Okay, and somebody could go there as often as they wanted. It's not like there's a set schedule of how regularly people go.
Mm-mm.
So the form that you described at the beginning, that liability waiver form, is that a form that's specific to the live fire range?
Correct.
How would you describe your practice, the care that you exercise in maintaining those records? And I'm asking because this obviously there is live ammunition. There's actual firing going on.
Correct.
Is it your intent to really identify correctly the people who are coming in to use the range and to be familiar with your customers?
Correct. So the liability waivers, I can tell you I have them as far back as when we started the live fire range. Now the live fire range we've only had since we moved into the Sherwood facility. We'd have a smaller one in Tualatin, but in Sherwood, I have them since day one.
Okay, and did you give up that Tualatin facility when you moved to Sherwood?
Correct.
Okay, and that was before 2018?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what we've marked as Defense Exhibit 362 and ask you if that in fact is the liability waiver that you just described.
Yes, this one is the liability waiver.
Okay, and what's this other sheet there?
So every time someone, so this, they only have to do once a year. This, every time someone comes into the facility, they have to initial by each one of these, and these are our range rules. So by initialing, they have to actually initial. If they just mark a line through it, we're going to make them go back. They have to sign, and then they also have to give an emergency contact that is not inside the facility.
Okay, so the smaller form, if I understood what you just said, this is something that you would get each and every time somebody comes in?
Correct.
Okay, and then, but specific to the firing range? those
Correct.
forms, okay. So did one of the investigators working on behalf of Ms. Crampton Brophy come to you maybe about 2 years ago, sometime in 2020, to talk with you about whether your business does in fact have any records relating to her?
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, did you have the opportunity to make a very thorough search of your records?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you identify any records that indicated to you that she had used your facilities in any way?
No, ma'am.
And are you confident that the records you reviewed included all of your business records for the period of, let's say, June 2017 to June 2018?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. Did you find anything that you thought was questionable or left, you know, let you think that maybe there was a stone left unturned?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, and she's sitting here next to me on the far side. Do you recognize her?
Ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you. I don't have any further questions for you.
Go ahead, state when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. I just want to ask you a couple questions, really about the facility. I want to better understand. I've never been to Threat Dynamics, so I don't have an understanding myself.
Sure.
Want to make sure the jury understands. So this is a facility located in Sherwood, and you said there's a simulator that you can use?
Correct.
Okay, and that, just to be clear, it's a firearms simulator, correct?
Yes.
Could you describe what that's like?
Sure. So we have a flat screen system, which we call the alley, and then we have a 300-degree system, which we call the arena. Inside those, you're using an actual registered Glock. The only difference is it's retrofitted with CO2 and a laser, so you're not shooting live ammunition. In those two rooms, you can shoot either targets and or scenarios. Scenarios put you into a situation where you have to react upon that situation, and it could be a shoot or no shoots situation. We work with de-escalation and different things like that as well.
Okay. So if somebody who was unfamiliar with firearms, or I guess I'll ask you that first, sorry. Do you get a lot of people that use the simulator that don't have any firearm experience before they go to that live fire?
We get a lot of people that do not have firearm experience. We try to encourage them to use these simulators first, mainly because they're not working with live ammunition. So if they're not familiar with it, it's a way for us or our instructors to be able to familiarize and make sure that they're going to be safe when they do go out onto the live fire range.
And you sort of mentioned this there, you said as instructors. Is this something that you help them with? You help them how to use the firearms, or do you just put them in the arena and set them free?
No. Well, it could be either way, actually. They can go in, they can ask for private instruction. The private instruction, they would have to pay for a private instructor. Again, those things are scheduled because we have to schedule those out. The private instructor would work with them depending on what their needs were or their levels were.
Okay. So let's say I have no firearm knowledge whatsoever. I call you up because I'm interested. You would be able to help me from that zero firearm knowledge all the way up to shooting.
Correct.
Okay. And you said that you use an actual Glock? Okay.
Yeah, it's just retrofitted.
Sure. Okay. So it's a fully functional Glock that you have modified into being have compressed air, it sounds like,
Yep.
and a laser.
Correct.
Okay. And so you also mentioned you have this live fire range. Is that outdoors or indoors? Or
It's indoors.
indoors, okay. And if somebody who had no experience wanted to come in and start in the live fire range, did you also have instruction available for those people as well?
Yeah, so anybody can request private instruction. If someone is new to the facility and they haven't been out on the live fire range, then we do what we call a walkthrough. So the walkthrough basically is an instruction on, these are our safety rules, these are what you're gonna find when you get out on the live fire range, this is how it operates, this is how you present your firearm, it has to stay on the table, it has to be pointed down range. I mean, we go over all those
Sure.
rules with them. They can, if we feel like they need to have somebody go out there with them or stay out there with them, then we will tell them that they need to have an RSO stay out there with them.
Okay. And do you also have a classroom?
We do.
And what is done in the classroom?
So classroom, we teach classes from basic intro to handguns all the way up to tactical defensive shooting.
Okay. And is it safe to say that you kind of get a wide range of people coming into your facility, people that have zero firearm experience, all the way up to people who are pretty experienced and are just looking to do some more training?
Yes,
Okay. Do you also have a shop?
we do.
What do you sell in that shop?
We sell firearms, we sell accessories. We don't have a lot, we also have gun rentals that they can rent as well.
Okay.
We don't have a lot on our retail side because that's not our primary focus.
Sure.
So,
But if one was inclined, say they rented a gun from you first, and they liked that gun, as long as you have it, it's something you could buy right there,
right, or we could special order it.
or you could order it. Okay. So I assume that your facility is a federal firearms license, has a federal firearms license, and that allows you to order in firearms and then resell them.
Correct.
Okay. Does that include parts as well?
Yeah, we don't really deal a whole lot with parts.
You mostly deal with full firearms.
Right.
Okay. But nonetheless, you have firearms that are available to rent as well for people to try out.
Correct.
Does that allow people to try out firearms before they have to jump and make that sort of expensive investment?
So we suggest they do.
Okay. And how many rental options do you have, do you think?
There's at least 75.
75
say.
different types of guns? And does that range in all types of calibers?
Yes,
Okay. Is that handguns and rifles, or is that just handguns?
handguns and rifles.
Okay. So your indoor shooting range, is that also for rifles?
Yes, you can.
Okay. What about shotguns?
Yes,
Okay. So you have everything, it sounds like.
yes.
Okay.
Try.
And 75 guns available to rent.
Yes,
Okay.
approximately.
Approximately, sure. I won't hold you to it, I promise. So, you have this process where, depending on what it is that you want to do, is the level of information somebody has to turn over. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so if I just want to go in and use your simulator, I really just got to sign up online, show up, sign in, and I could use the simulator.
Correct.
Okay. But if I want to buy a gun, say, well, that's sort of the next couple of steps. If I want to use the live fire range, I have to give you my ID, make sure my address is correct. What other information do you need? Sorry.
So if it's your first time in, you have to sign the liability waiver.
Oh, right.
And that's what we would take your ID copy on the back. On the daily sheet, so the daily check-in sheet is what we call it. That's where you have to initial the basic handgun rules, and on the flip side, it tells you what you want to take out to the live fire range with you. If more than one person comes in at a time, then we will collect one of their driver's license to hold on in drawers where we keep them while they're out on the live fire range. Then when they come out from the live fire range, that's when they pay for whatever they took out onto the live fire range.
Okay. So if somebody wants to remain anonymous, can they come and use your facility?
No, not with the forms that we have that they have to sign.
Assuming they're not defrauding you, meaning they're not bringing another ID or something like that, or claiming to be somebody else. Can I walk in your facility and say, I don't really want you to know who I am, I just want to shoot my gun or shoot your guns?
No,
Can you do that?
no.
Okay. Can you bring your own guns? I meant to ask you that earlier.
Yes.
Okay, so if I have my own gun, I don't want to rent your guns, I don't want to buy your guns, I can bring my own firearm and I can shoot that there as well?
Yep.
Okay. And do you also sell ammunition?
Only for the live fire range. We do have some critical defense that you can purchase out in the lobby, but the others only for the live fire range.
Okay. But nonetheless, if I bring in my gun and I don't have any ammunition, I could possibly buy it as long as you have it in stock.
Sure.
Okay. And I believe you testified to this on direct, but you have reviewed all of your records. And is that your records, just all of the records that you have completely? Okay, and you haven't come across the name Nancy Crampton Brophy, Nancy Lee Brophy, Nancy Brophy, nothing like that?
Not Nancy, no.
Okay. There was another Brophy, but it was a different first name
Right.
or something. Okay. But there was no Nancy Brophy?
Nope.
Or any variation of Nancy Brophy?
No,
Okay,
not that we could find.
okay. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much.
The redirect.
Nothing further. Thank you, Judge.
All right, and may the witness be excused.
Yes.
Yes.
Say, okay, you can, yeah. If you wouldn't mind putting your mask back on though.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, that's all right.
I think I can go ahead and call Delilah Marvell.
Okay. Delilah Marvell, all right? All right, Ms. Marvell, we'll have you come up and go ahead and stand in the witness box, but don't have a seat just yet. We'll have you get as close to the microphone as possible, and my clerk will give you an oath.
Ask you to please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then you may be seated and you may remove your mask.
Thank you.
And because we're being recorded, I'll ask you to please state and spell your first and last name.
Okay, my first name, Delilah Arendt, Delilah. Last name, Ahrendt.
All right, and if you'd like, there is some water there to the side,
Thank you.
but sure, whenever defense is ready.
Good afternoon, Ms. Marvell. Are you a writer?
I am
What kinds of things do you write?
historical romance.
And when does it take place?
I do a variety of genres in the historical romance era, from the French Revolution to the late Victorian, almost early Edwardian era.
You know the woman sitting next to me?
I do.
And how do you know her?
I know her from the Rose City romance writers, and I've known her for a very long time,
A couple of decades?
almost 20 years.
You're a romance writer,
Yes.
but you also have a connection to the culinary community?
Yes, I'm also a chef.
Okay. You're our first crossover witness that's in both worlds, both romance writers and culinary
I have a
person.
love for historical cooking and history and romance, yes.
Okay. You said that you met Ms. Brophy over 20 years ago, and was that as a writer?
Yes, first as a writer, yes.
Okay. At some point then, did Ms. Brophy encourage you to attend culinary school?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It was during a very difficult time of my life. My husband had almost been murdered in front of myself and my children. And I sustained 40 blows to the head. It was a very traumatic part of my life. And I stopped writing. But the writer community basically kept knocking on my door, trying to offer me support and trying to drive me back. And Nancy was part of that circle. And she brought a lot of humor to my dark times. And I decided to pursue a part of my life that I hadn't, which was my passion for cooking. I'd always kept putting it off because my kids and everything, and it kind of was one of those moments. It's like a now or never moment. And so Nancy introduced me to the culinary. Because I was looking to do a cordon bleu at the time. It's like, no, you need to talk to Dan. You need to check out this new school. And it was pretty new at the time. I was going in, I think, around 2006, I believe. And I fell in love with the staff, fell in love with Dan, and wanted to be part of it and kind of take my mind off of everything and just threw myself into a new community.
Had you met Dan Brophy before then?
In passing,
Okay.
yes. Whenever we did events or I never really saw Dan without Nancy in that aspect.
Okay. But at some point, did you develop like a separate or maybe just personal relationship with Dan Brophy?
I did, yeah.
Tell us about that.
He was my mentor, my teacher, and I looked up to him. He was a man of few words, but when he said them, you listened, and was a damn good teacher. Damn good teacher.
Did he challenge you?
All the time, yeah.
And I take it that you appreciated being challenged like that.
Very much so. That's why I was there to learn and to be a chef.
Okay. And without getting into specific examples, from time to time, were there students that maybe, well, how big were these classes?
They were small, and that was the other thing I really liked about it compared to cordon bleu. Maybe 20 to 25 students in a class.
Okay. So if one student was disruptive or was making it difficult for other students, how did the OCI staff and Dan Brophy in particular, how did they handle that?
Very seriously. I had a personal experience in which there was one fellow student who was very abrasive. I was constantly getting into fights with him, but he came intoxicated, and the staff took care of it really quickly. They didn't, because it becomes a dangerous situation when you have somebody inebriated or in a form of addiction. You know, you're around knives and cooking, and so you just can't have that kind of people around.
So when that happened, invariably, would those people just be escorted out?
They would be asked to leave.
Okay.
Yes. So nothing physical, never got to that.
Okay. Now let's move out of that zone. Just let me ask you about the opportunities that you had to observe Nancy and Dan together in the last 20 years.
It was a very quirky relationship, I would say. Very, a lot of bantering, a lot of goodness, I guess is a way of saying it. They were happy.
Have you seen them in their home together? Have you been in their home?
Yes,
And have they been to your home?
yes.
You and your husband bought a farm, is that right?
Timberland, yes.
Timberland. Okay. Agricultural terms, you guys are
Yeah.
specific, aren't you? Where is that property, just generally?
It's, I would say, in the Gales Creek area.
And had Nancy and Dan visited that farm or
Yes.
that timberland?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury how Dan Brophy, can you just describe what Dan Brophy did during that visit?
So I did a lot of cooking because it was kind of like a open house, and so I invited a lot of people over to see the property. It was 80 acres, and I'm a city girl, originally from Chicago, so for me it was something incredibly new altogether. And Dan, I didn't know half the plantations that were on my own property, and so Dan asked if I wanted to know some of the stuff that was on the property, and I said yes. And so we went into an area which I call the Enchanted Forest because everything in it is 75 years or older. It's just a beautiful little area by the creek. So we went down as far as we physically could, and I'm trying to remember if there were other people with us, but I think Dan went as far as he could with me, and then some of the people dropped off. But yeah, so he was saying this is Oregon grape, and oh my gosh, mushrooms in particular. That was his big thing, was mushrooms, and so he was asking if he could come back and do some mushroom hunting.
So he gave you a tour of your own property, it sounds
Basically,
like.
yeah,
He told you what was growing there,
yes,
and he asked if he could come back,
yes,
and he seemed charmed by this timberland.
yes. And kind of like he said, trying to remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of, "You're living the life."
And this property's out close to 26, kind of between here and the coast, is that
Yes,
right?
yes. I'm about 40 minutes or so from the coast.
Okay. But you're also not too far from the city,
Yes,
so kind of a nice place to be if you want to both visit the coast and visit Portland, is that right?
that's what we love about it.
In the time that you've known Nancy Brophy, did you ever notice a change in her relationship with Dan Brophy?
No,
Did she talk about her husband?
yes,
And was there ever a change in how she talked about him?
no.
I want to take you back to writing. We've gone to the timberland or the growing parts of things, but I want to take you back to your writing. You said that you wrote historical romance, is that right?
Yes,
I want to show you what's been marked as defendants. Well, before I do that, do writers research before they write?
constantly.
And I guess would your research kind of change depending on your genre?
Yes,
So you write about historical romance.
yes,
Are weapons a big part of your writing?
yes. Flintlocks. Yes,
Flintlocks?
flintlocks. It's a 1800s version of a pistol.
Okay. Probably not a lot of Glocks in your writing.
No,
And is it rare for a writer to spend money on this kind of research?
not at all, no.
I want to show you then what's been marked as Exhibit 298. It's going to show up on that little television screen in front of you. What is that?
It's a Victorian chastity belt.
It's a Victorian chastity belt?
Yes, a Victorian chastity belt.
And did you buy that as a part of your writing?
I did.
Did you look all over for that?
I did. It was years in the making, so to speak.
And I don't want to embarrass you, but how much money did you spend on that?
Several $100s, close to, I would say, $700-800.
Anything else I need? I'm done with you,
Okay.
but they might have some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You said that chastity belt was, I think you said you looked all over for it. Is it pretty rare?
It's rare to get one in good condition. Let's just put it that way.
And is it something that you can like go rent or go borrow from somewhere?
No, they're usually in museums behind glass. Like in New York City, they have an entire exhibit of male and female chastity belts, but they're all behind glass.
You can't interact with them or use them. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And would it be fair to say that as a writer, you've been pretty successful,
Yes.
and you are earning or have earned a substantial or good, I guess, income from writing? And that's been it seems to me like a long time.
Yes. I've published 19 books
Over a long time span of not
since
just
2008.
2008. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay. And you mentioned the property that you live on. You live at that property that you described.
Yes.
And how long have you lived there?
Going on 7 years, I believe.
Okay. So since around 2015-ish?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you said that both the Brophys came out to visit one time,
Yes.
was it just that one time?
Yes.
Okay. And when was that? Do you remember?
It was late summer because it took us some time to kind of the property was in rough condition. Let's just put it that way.
Get it right. 'Cause
Yeah,
it sounded like
yeah.
kind of a house or a property warming, if you will.
Yes.
Okay. So would that have been in the summer of 2016?
16. Yes, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
And not another time.
No.
Okay. And I don't want to say your address out loud, so I'm just
I
gonna
appreciate that. Thank you.
And if you can just look at this and tell me if that is the address of that property.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
The redirect.
Yes. Council asked you about the chastity belts that you'd seen behind glass. How many different chastity belts have you seen behind glass?
A lot.
But rather than just viewing the chastity belt behind the glass, you wanted to actually own a chastity belt?
Yes.
And why?
As a writer, I feel that I cannot encompass certain things unless I have a sense of the weight. I can't describe the weight of something. I can't describe, well, it didn't fit on me, but they were very tiny back then. But even how I was surprised as to how lightweight it was. So, and that's something that I figured I did not get from behind glass. So, yeah, no, I also have a tendency to really enjoy collecting Victorian era things because not a lot of people appreciate history.
But the chastity belt, you actually wanted to touch it?
Yes, I
You
did.
wanted to feel how heavy it was?
Yes, after it was heavily cleaned.
You also wanted to see how the hinges work and how the key worked?
Yes,
But you didn't want to just observe that, you wanted to actually get your hands on it and
Yes.
experience it in real life. Well, not real life, but
yes, and that was for me with every item. I can't write about something I don't understand. And so, same with the flintlock. I purchased 1800s flintlock, which I used in one of my book trailers as well.
wow.
Yeah.
Where do you find a flintlock?
You know, there's obviously eBay is a very big proponent, but I would say there's a lot of antique stores.
And how much does a flintlock cost?
I think it cost me around $250, $300, but it wasn't in firing condition, I guess is a way of saying it.
Okay.
And I was fine with that.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank
I have
you.
no further questions.
All right, may the witness be excused?
Yes.
And for the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
You know,
defense next witness.
the defense will call, or I guess recall, Jessica Smith. Is this a, you're looking at the clock, is this a good time?
No, no, that's
Oh,
fine. No, it's
okay.
fine, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. All right, and Ms. Smith, if you want to, why don't you come back up? And just so I'm clear, did you say, is it Miss Linda Smith?
Pardon me? Oh, no,
Maybe
this is Jessica Smith.
Okay, sorry. So if you could go ahead and step into the box there. And if you could raise your right hand, my clerk will re-give you an oath.
Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, then you may be seated and you may remove your mask. And then because we're being recorded, I'll ask you to please state and spell your first and last name.
Jessica Smith, Jessica, Smith, Smith.
All right, and I know you've testified once, Ms. Smith, but just as a reminder, there is water there if you want it. And then when defense is ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Over here. You've testified before, is that right?
Correct, yes.
And I can tell you frankly that I can't remember what we talked about and what we didn't talk about, so I might cover some of what we've already talked about. Is that okay?
Yes,
You know Nancy Crampton Brophy,
yes.
and how long have you known her?
Over 10 years.
And how do you know her?
I know her as a friend, and I know her as a fellow Oregon romance writer.
And do you live near her?
Yes, I do.
And how much time would you guys spend together?
Quite frequently. The chapter meetings were once a month, and then we would get together quite often in between. Lots of times having meals together. We enjoyed that.
Okay. And did you get to know Dan Brophy?
I did.
And how much time did you spend with Dan Brophy?
Not as often as Nancy, but he was around at the house, and she enjoyed his company, so she would often invite him to join us on the meals together. And we did, Dan and I did a few things together, but my primary friendship was with Nancy.
Okay. And I think when we left off last time, I think we'd already talked about the bees, right? You and Dan did bees?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The bees were not your finest moment?
I don't think I was a very successful helper, but I always appreciated that he let me try.
Okay. Can you describe, well, first of all, do you think you have a pretty good handler that you had sufficient time to observe the interactions between Dan and Nancy Brophy to form an opinion regarding their marriage?
Yes,
And what is that opinion?
I thought it was a wonderful marriage. I always saw them together. They seemed to enjoy actually being in their company, which after being together for so long, I was always found that very hopeful that a marriage, that they would still like to be together. I always saw them working in partnership, and the thing I liked the most is that he had the driest sense of humor, and she would just laugh, and I just thought they still liked being together after so many long years, and I really thought that was special.
In all the time that you knew Nancy and Dan Brophy, did you ever see any change or deterioration in that marriage?
No,
Did you ever see anything that suggested to you that Nancy Brophy didn't appreciate Dan Brophy?
no,
Did she ever complain about him?
no, but it was not uncommon for people to comment on how special their relationship was, and she had a response because she didn't take compliments very well. She used to say, "Oh, no marriage is perfect. We're thermostat incompatible." That she liked the house hotter and he liked the house colder. So people used to call out that, and she used to say that as a joke.
Do you know which month Nancy's birthday is in?
June?
And do you know which month Dan's birthday is in?
I want to say June, but I'm not 100% off. Sure, sorry.
Do you remember the last time that you had a conversation with both Dan and Nancy together?
I have a very vague memory that I know that there was a conversation about a joint birthday, and they were trying to pick the perfect menu for, having more than one person. But I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly whose birthdays they were discussing or what menu they ultimately decided on.
That's okay, we'll forgive you for not remembering the menu.
Sorry.
Was that just a week or so before Dan died?
I'd like to say it was in the last couple of weeks, but I'm sorry, I can't remember the specific day now.
Okay. Well, I know you guys have different terms for this, but the phrase workshopping or plotting or storylining, are those all synonymous?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah. The words workshopping a story
Yeah.
or building a storyline or plotting, are all those terms synonymous?
In my experience, yes.
Okay. And is that something you enjoy doing?
Oh, yes.
And is that something that you and Ms. Brophy did together frequently?
Yes. I will admit that I quite enjoyed when she talked about her stories because I find storylining a lot more exciting than the actual writing part.
What are writers trying to do when they brainstorm or storyline or workshop? What are they trying to accomplish?
Sure. I think there's a lot of pressure to publish a lot of books quicker and faster and to get past the learning curve faster. And there's nothing more depressing than finding that you have written 10,000 words and written yourself into a corner. And so, if you're lucky, you have friends who are writers or critique groups, and you get to kind of talk out your story so you can find out if you have any plot holes and if they think that your hero is not likable, those things. And then there are kind of formulaic parts to writing a romance, and if you miss those beats, you don't get the reader satisfaction that you want. But sometimes you love your story so much that you write yourself into a 10,000 word corner. So if you are lucky, you have friends that will gently brainstorm with you and help you save yourself a lot of writing time by just offering suggestions.
So as part of this process, would it be that one writer shares with another writer maybe a storyline that's being developed, and then the second writer listens and offers criticism about the storyline?
That's been my personal experiences. I know that some critique groups have allotted time allowance, but I just love hearing my friends' stories.
Okay. But I guess my question is part of this process for the listener to offer criticism or maybe suggest which parts are implausible or which parts just don't play well?
Yes, if they're being a good friend.
Okay. And is this something that you and Nancy Brophy did frequently?
all the time.
Was there a time in 2018 when the two of you were driving around looking for apartments that you were engaged in this workshopping activity or this plotting activity?
Yes, she was talking about a storyline where
Objection, Your Honor.
Let me just guide you through this, okay?
Sure.
Ms. Smith? As a part of this storyline building, did Ms. Brophy tell you that she had purchased a gun kit?
yes,
Can you describe Nancy Brophy's demeanor after her husband died?
I feel like she was overwhelmed and kind of scattered and unfocused, and which is a complete change because she usually plays the hostess, the life of the party. And it seemed like we were all there, but she didn't know what to do with us.
Did you help her clean up the house or get the house ready to sell? What did
Yeah.
you do?
I was assigned to work upstairs. Initially, I was helping sorting books into categories, but then I got a task to, they had a lot of artwork, and I got tasked to do the bubble wrapping. So I did that in a room mainly upstairs.
Is that where the master bedroom is?
Yes.
How many different people did you see go in and out of the house during that summer?
During the summer?
Yeah, the summer of 2018.
Well, I know, I think there were 5 of us helping her that single day. Or I know the next day after I saw her, 4 people were there. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, just what you
Sorry.
saw. You're not there, you weren't there
I
every
wasn't
day.
there every day.
Did you help look for a will?
No.
Did this, when a writer's thinking about his or her story, I'm trying to figure out good words to describe it. Is that a daydreaming process? What does that look like? What would we compare it to?
Well, I think every writer has their own path to kind of spark their creativity. But if I can get a scene in my head, I can get totally absorbed into following that thread. And so it's daydreaming can be very helpful, but I also try to keep notes too. But you can sit there and just brainstorm in your mind and let your creativity go.
Is that a pleasant place to be?
Oh, it is way more fun to think of happily ever afters than to write the 80,000 words that require to get it down. So I do it quite often.
Is that your happy time?
Yes, very much.
I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
No questions, thank you.
All right, may the witness be excused.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and then who's the next defense witness?
You know, we had discussed a witness earlier today before court began and decided to put that witness off until tomorrow.
Did, yes.
And so I guess that would be our last witness for today.
Okay, all right. And just as an explanation to the jury, this was as a result of my decision, not the lawyers. So we will have a early break today, and we'll plan to, let's, I think we'll probably start a little bit later tomorrow. We'll try to start at 9. Well, let me ask, are we going to take up the issue in the morning? Or would that be later in the day?
No, first thing, if we can.
All right, so let's plan for the jury then. We'll try to start trial around 9:30. So Ms. Lou will talk to you about how that adjusts your arrival time. Oh, and I'm sorry, and just so the jury is aware, we will not be using this Friday as a trial date, in case you were wondering about that.
Okay, I will go off record and go recess today.
All right.